So if you are an ENFP, there's a very good chance that you have the tendency, let's say, the habit of changing direction and not necessarily acknowledging your change in direction and doing this way too often. Often this is called shiny object syndrome, right? You start on something, then you see something that looks better, or maybe this wasn't as easy as you thought it was, so you change to the next thing and the next thing. But what us ENFPs do that's a little different than a lot of other people is we don't really acknowledge we're quitting or we're changing directions. We do it all very subtly. And we, just the way our minds basically process things, we gradually change and we kind of think that we're doing what we plan to do. But if you look back 6 months or a year, you realize that you've got totally off course and you're not really doing what you meant to be doing. Now, the problem with this, I've made other videos on dabbling and the dangers of dabbling, is that it really eats away at your chances of success. And the reason is that we're out there competing in a world of INTJs, of INFJs, of people who are pretty focused and dialed in what they're doing and consistent. And so here we are changing directions every few weeks, every few minutes, every few months, whatever it is. How are we going to compete with other people who are basically focused and doing one thing? Now, I know why this has been such a challenge for me in the past, and it's really because we get excited about stuff. We like newness. As ENFPs, we like things that are novel. We like variety. We like new challenges. That first part of a project is a lot more exciting than the end part, right? The little details. And so what that ends up doing is it ends up pulling us into all these different things that if we don't have the right systems in place, maybe have the right kind of outlook, ends up spending a lot of time starting things and never really getting a lot accomplished. I'm sure if you were to search for like ENFP blogs, you're going to find the highest number of blogs started and not finished of any group on the internet. And that's, again, because we like the starting. But I want to go through some things that have really helped me learn to finish things. And if you're new to my channel, if you haven't watched my videos or you don't know my story, I started out doing a bunch of different entrepreneurial things when I came out of school, and most recently was working as a freelancer. I used freelancing to help me travel the world. I lived in, I guess this is country number 7 now I've lived in, and I, along the way, started writing books. I published about 11, 12, there's one I don't really want to count, so let's say I've published 11 books at this point. I built a coaching practice. I have online training courses and that. So I figured out how to finish things and follow through. And despite probably hearing the advice that you got to get a partner to do it, you need to have someone else to be the finisher. That is good advice, but I've done it without having that partner, figuring out to do it myself. The first thing that really helped me figure this out was changing my perception of time. And so if you study NLP or you're familiar with Tony Robbins, I did my coaching training with him. And he has a concept of time, basically, and how we all have different perceptions of time. For some people, a minute is a long time. For other people, a week is nothing. A year is nothing. You know, you have people you meet, and if you're an ENFP, this probably isn't you, who've had the same job for 10 years, 20 years. And to them, a year is nothing. I have a friend who's very much like this, where we talk about trip planning. You know, I'm like, oh, when are you going to come visit me in Europe? And he's planning 2 years ahead. Like it's 2016 now, he's talking about 2018 when he might plan a trip. I plan my trips like a month in advance, maybe 2 for something big. And, you know, so we have different perceptions of time and how long something is. And as ENFPs, we tend to have a urgency in our behavior, right? Where we like to do things quickly, we want results now, and that is good in many ways. It's part of our strength, part of what allows us to really drive projects and initiate things. There's other personality types who will take a year to start their business. An ENFP might start it in a week on a hunch, right, and just go for it, which is awesome. The problem is this perception that things should be quick often leads us to not really stay the course and changes sort of our sense of success. So if we're 3 months into something or 6 months into something, we start to think, oh yeah, we failed or this isn't working because we haven't got the kind of results we've expected because we're optimists, we're idealists, we expect good things to happen. And so because of this, we end up changing our mind or thinking, okay, this doesn't work, let's try something different. And the reality is that, especially in the new world now, in terms of the internet, things take a long time. Now, you might think this is contradiction, right? Isn't the internet about making things quick and easy? The internet is about making kind of consumerism quick and easy. But if you want to be successful in a lot of things, like you want to build a YouTube channel or a blog or some kind of successful thing, a podcast where you stand out to people, it takes a long time to break through that noise because, you know, if you're living in a small town and you start doing public speaking, well, you're probably the only person doing public speaking. So it's pretty easy to get a following right away. If you come on YouTube and you start making videos, it might be a year before you get any real traction because there's so many people and you're competing with the whole world. And so there's something that I learned around this topic that really helped me. It stuck with me. It's something I have in my email. Like I have this free email course I teach that I have a whole email around it. I learned it in motorcycle school. So I went to this really cool school for getting my motorcycle license where they used all these military analogies and all this stuff. And it was that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So, you know, people, and they said especially guys are really bad with this. We have this urgency, and when you're riding a motorbike, you try to like force it. And that's not the right way. It makes you a terrible rider. And that really slow, subtle movements make you smooth. And by being smooth, you're actually fast. So if you look at the best racers, the people who are the fastest, they're actually the people who have slow, smooth movements. And so I started applying this to thinking about my life, is that rather than thinking about 1 week at a time, you know, like these short things, I need success, thinking longer term and having more of a drawn out goal, like a year out, and realizing that it will take time to get there. I have some friends who've done very well in terms of, like, I'll use YouTube because we're on YouTube, in terms of their YouTube channels and getting a lot of success. And what's been cool is I've watched them from the beginning and put in months and months of work with no results and just keep going. And I know if that was me, I would quit, right? I would think, oh, this YouTube thing's not working. And I've actually done that in the past where I've put up some videos and sort of quit and not really done anything with it. And it was seeing how much work actually needs to go in to succeed, which changed my sense of time, which has helped me basically be more patient and have a longer time frame. And so in terms of applying this, the first thing is just to actively think about it. I know that seems maybe lame advice, but just start processing that way of thinking, you know, okay, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, and thinking that, okay, really I don't need to be successful or achieve whatever it is you're trying to achieve in a month. You know, if it happened in 6 months or a year or 2 years, that would be pretty good. And so kind of focusing on that longer term and just keeping in mind it takes time to get there and reminding yourself of that. So if you spend a week working really hard on something and you don't get any results, you're not going to be as disappointed because you're coming in with the mental frame that this is going to be hard. And when you come in with that mental frame, you're not as disappointed. It's just, you know, high expectations, over optimistic views lead to huge disappointment, lead to quitting. So if you can reframe that and think, okay, in a way it's actually more optimistic because what you're thinking is, okay, if I put in a year of hard work, I know it will be successful. So I'm going to put in that time and I'm not going to change my emotions and react to every bad day or negative event that happens. I'm going to more focus on the long term, the bigger picture. One thing that can help with this is having some form of accountability in terms of your goals and your planning. I mentioned this earlier in the video. ENFPs, we are very good at basically lying to ourselves, BSing ourselves about why we're changing directions. I've talked about in other videos the aspect of like lying to ourselves about eating dark chocolate or drinking a bottle of wine. Like, oh, there's antioxidants, it's good for us. But you really just want to drink the wine, right? But you find ways to justify it. Well, ENFPs are masters of doing this with everything. If we want to change direction, we can always find a way to do it, even if it's not the right thing to do. So if we commit to starting a business, we start working on it, and something bad happens that makes us feel bad, and we just emotionally want to quit, we can find a dozen ways to justify that. Oh, the economy changed. Oh, I had this job offer, this is whatever. But really, we're changing our minds, we're quitting, we're letting ourselves down. And so I would encourage you to set kind of concrete destinations. You could call them goals, you could call them destinations, like where you want to get to, what you want to do. And when you set that, write it down and maybe share it with some people and hold yourself to that. Say, this is where I want to go. If I start to lie to myself and change direction and say, wait, maybe I should go here instead, maybe I should do this, just being aware that that is a lie, right? You're lying to yourself about it and you're letting your emotions kind of take over. And so whatever you write down, I also encourage you not to do it on a whim, the way us ENFPs tend to do. So write down your destination and then let it sit for a week. Kind of think about it, really commit to it. And in committing to it, commit to it, right? So if you just scribble something down on a piece of paper one day on a whim, you're probably not that likely to really commit to it and stick to it because you just emotionally made that decision. So try to make something really concrete and then stick with that, and that's going to help a lot with actually changing your perception of time and just staying on course with it. Okay, so back to this perception of time, right? One of the things that happens with ENFPs, with our sense of urgency, with our desire to make things happen quick, and this is what I've seen in my own life, and I've seen it, I've coached ENFPs, I've worked with ENFPs one-on-one as a business coach and stuff, which is really interesting because you see your own bad habits in them and it makes it so clear and has probably really helped me as much as in some ways it's helped the clients. So when you try to go in these little sprints, what can happen if you don't have a unified kind of vision of where you're going to is that you'll go this way and then that way and then this way and then that way and then back this way, and you kind of end up back where you started. And I got clarity with this with myself when I sat back and looked at a couple of years of my business where I was busy, and I did achieve some things. I did grow, the business in some ways, but I looked back and realized that because I kept changing directions in terms of like my marketing strategy and different aspects of where I wanted to focus the business, I didn't really get that much done. That at the end of say 2 years, I looked back and I really kind of mapped out like what did I actually do, and it wasn't, come on, focus, back on the face, autofocus. It wasn't actually that impressive in terms of what I was able to do because I kept changing directions, and every time you change directions, you reset your progress, at least to some extent, if not fully. And so by doing sort of a 3-month sprint, let's try this marketing approach. Oh, okay, I didn't really follow through. Let's try this. Nothing really comes of it. And that kind of kicked me in the ass where I just realized that I'd in some ways wasted all this time because I didn't just focus in one area and just keep going. And that was a wake-up call and kind of a shock to my system, which really helped solidify this. So keep that in mind, is if you kind of zigzag, you keep changing directions, you do sprints, and they're not part of a unified vision, like something you're trying to move towards, that you may find yourself in the same place a couple years from now. And maybe if you look back now over the last couple of years, that might resonate with you, where you realize that you've been doing the same thing that I was doing. So one last little tip, and then we'll end the video here, and that's just that if you are an ENFP, and you have this need for variety, the ENFP way, right? Where you want excitement, you like newness, maybe find other ways to meet it aside from your career or your business. So whether that's playing extreme sports or going traveling more or whatever it is for you that will give you excitement, when you meet that need for excitement in other places, you might not need it in your business. So or career or whatever. I talk about business because it's kind of my world, but this applies for all areas of your life, really. If you don't intentionally, proactively meet your need for excitement and for newness is important for us, right? We like novelty, new things. If you're not meeting that need in some way, then you'll unconsciously meet it through probably more destructive ways, right? So you can choose to do things that are novel, that will bring you excitement, and be in charge, or you can leave it to your unconscious, your ENFP need for excitement, and then you'll end up doing things that could be damaging, self-sabotaging, like getting in big fights with your partner, or always switching who you're dating, or changing your business direction all the time because you need that newness and you're not meeting that need elsewhere. So I really encourage you to proactively meet that need for newness rather than just let it happen to you. Cool, awesome. Thanks for bearing with me for this video here. And if you've enjoyed it, subscribe, like the video, leave a comment. Especially, if you are an ENFP, I'd love to hear your story. Does this resonate with you? Have you been through this? As I said, I've coached some ENFPs and I'm one myself, and I'm fairly a self-reflective guy, but I'd love to learn more, and kind of if you've had this same experience and that kind of thing, it would be great to just share it with all of us here. Cool. Thanks for watching. See you in another video.